Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Rangers Review pre-match briefing. Sorry we're late. We're still waiting on Derek, who is in the stadium. Chris and I have seen him, but he was outside and it was a bit noisy, so we sent him down to the press room. He will appear flustered, we hope, in a minute. We'll read out the teams. We'll dive into how they might look and what it might mean ahead of Benfica against Rangers tonight in the Europa League. Rangers, quite a strong team, Chris, quite an attacking team, with Jack Butland in goals. Back four, James Tavenier, Connor Goldson, John Suter and Ridvan Yilmaz. It does look like a back four instead of the back five that Clement perhaps suggested or hinted it could be yesterday in the press conference. John Lundstrom is joined in midfield by Mohamed Diomande. I think it'll probably be Tom Lawrence ahead of them at number 10 with Fabio Silva from the left, Dujon Sterling from the right and Cyril Dessers through the middle, although I'm not sure because I kind of thought Sterling might play on the side of Angel Di Maria. Hard to predict exactly how that attacking complexion will make up. I'll put up the Benfica team as well, Chris, how we think it might look. Alexander Ba is back for them at right back. Orsnes moves to left back. He's played on the right for them in the last, he's played on the right for them at points throughout the whole season. Is a conventional midfielder, but pretty flexible. Otamendi and Silva at centre half, no surprises there. João Neves is joined by Florentino. I think Florentino gives Benfica a bit more defensive balance in the midfield behind an attacking trio of Rafa Silva, David Neres and Angel Di Maria. A lot of talent in there, perhaps not that much defensive work ethic, which is something Rangers will look to exploit. And Cabral plays through the middle as their number 9. He's kind of their focal point option. Chris, immediate reflections to the Rangers team while we await Derek live from Lisbon. It's quite attacking, isn't it?
I think if you look at the Rangers team, it can partly be explained by looking at the Rangers bench.
Yes,
there is not a lot there. The manager obviously discussed that key selection headache that he had, but it's only a headache because he doesn't have that many problems and he doesn't have that many players, and that's why it's an issue. So if you look at the bench in terms of potential game changers, it's really Kemar Roof. We don't know how fit Ross McCausland is. Couple of young boys on there, and you've then got Jack, Lee's Passage King, and 2 keepers. There's not a lot there for Rangers. So I think if you look at the 11 that has been picked, it's definitely the strongest 11 that Clement could have put out, because it's really the strongest 11 that's actually fit. I know we've spoken in the last couple of weeks about, is it a risk to play Dessers and Silva at the same time?
Yeah.
If unfortunate was to happen to one of them, that then puts Rangers in a really, really difficult situation. We could only hope that doesn't happen, and both of them come through the night. But it's certainly an attacking side. It's a side that's going to have a big job on its hand. You look at the strength of that Benfica team. A lot of attacking talent in there.
Yeah.
But the manager said last night they're not there to play for a draw. They're not there to try and limit the damage. They're there to win the game. They're there to give themselves the best possible chance heading back to Ibrox. And so hopefully it's a big night, and it's a big night for a lot of those players.
Yeah, delighted to bring in Derek Clark from somewhere in the stadium of like Derek. Can you hear us first and foremost? Everyone's been eagerly awaiting your arrival. How are you doing, and what do you make of the team?
Yeah, apologies, folks. I'm now in the bills of the Estadio da Luz. It was a tad loud out in the gantry, so I've made my way down into the working press area. It's still pretty loud. There's a few Portuguese journalists busy talking away, but yeah, I've made it down here. So I've seen the team, and I think it's a decent look inside. I'm interested to see that the Silva-Dessers partnership, we haven't seen it often in a starting, ever in a starting 11. We have seen Silva come on and support Dessers, of course, in a match recently domestically, but of course we've seen him play on that left-hand side for PSV on loan last season. He'll be keen to make an impression, I'm sure, against his former club. That assurance coming in here. Interesting to see that Diomande Lundstrom partnership as well. It's a decent enough looking side. It's not the team I predicted this morning, Joshua, when I was getting absolutely pelters for suggesting that Ridvan and Barisic should start on that left-hand side. But yeah, I can understand why the manager's gone with that starting 11. I think it's good enough to get a result over here. That being said, look at the Benfica team, that they're packed full of talent, of course, and Rangers will need to be at their best to come away with a positive result this evening. Big night for Cyril Dessers. I think we need a better style performance from him. He can't afford to miss opportunities if they're laid on a plate, and Goulton and Suter need to have the opposite performance that they had at the weekend against Motherwell if Rangers are to come away with a decent result here this evening. But it's a team. I've entered the stadium. There's a lot of optimism around. I'm speaking to a few supporters this afternoon in the square, well, it's in Lisbon, and there's a bit of trepidation, but there's confidence that Rangers know how to compete at this level, and they're good enough to get a result and take it back to Ibrox. So yeah, certainly lots of optimism around, and looking at that starting 11, I think it is good enough to get a result. I'm not too sure if you guys agree.
Yeah, very similar to the game away at Real Betis. Chris and I were speaking before we came on air, Derek, and it's easy to forget that if you were able to pick from Rangers squad a first choice starting 11, we've got about 500 people on at the moment. I would guess at least 400 of them, or around 300, maybe would pick Cantwell, Cortez, Sima, and a good proportion, maybe Danilo, maybe the number 9 slot is up for grabs. But it is easy to forget that of the squad that Rangers have assembled, so much of their attacking talent is not available. That was quite similar when they went away to Real Betis and managed to get a result. They went for it in Betis. They were aggressive. Clement said yesterday he's not going to go and park a bus anywhere. He's not done it at previous clubs. He won't do it at Rangers, even if there is perhaps the slight appeal to, like Rangers did in Leipzig and what a later stage of the competition, but they played a back five. They very much counter-attacked and tried to keep the tie alive for the second leg. That is not the approach they take tonight. Derek, firstly, your day so far. Tell us what the atmosphere is like there. The stadium, obviously, fantastic. We'll speak to you after the game as well, but has the feel of a big game, and I'm sure anticipation on the home end of things as well.
I'll turn my mic on for a start, and Johnny there. But we made our way down to the pier. It was overcast when we made our way out this morning, and choppy waves. I posted something on Twitter earlier on. Went down to the sort of square next to the pier where the Rangers fans were told to congregate before being escorted to the stadium, and the weather was it was Scottish weather. It was overcast. It was raining. It was windy. But the sun made an appearance early afternoon. We made our way up to another part of the city and met a good few other Rangers supporters. Met up with Adam, good friend of the show, of course, and regular contributor. So I met up with Adam and various other Rangers fans. Had a good bit of time with them, and then made our way back to the apartment before getting on the metro towards the stadium. And then, hot-footing it into the ground. It's a fantastic-looking stadium, incidentally. A lot of people say it's similar to Arsenal's Emirates ground. I can see why they say that. It's very similar in stature. It's a grand-looking arena, but I expect Rangers to come out here with the chest puffs up and try and get a result here against a team that have suffered a bit of a wobble recently. I know that Roger Smith under a bit of pressure from the Benfica faithful after 2 disappointing results. So if Rangers can quieten the Benfica fans, perhaps even frustrate them, I'm sure Philippe Clement will be urging the team to make it life difficult for the home team to get the fans on their back. Then that'll work in Rangers' favour. Of course, it's all about keeping the tie alive for next week. You want, I mean, even if it's a defeat this evening, as long as it's not a punishing one, and Rangers have got a chance next week, then I'm sure that's all we can ask for. I mean, I've seen many supporters, even speaking to a few this afternoon, suggesting that Sunday is a bigger game, and they can understand the thinking behind that. But it's good to be at this stage of European competition. I mean, so often growing up, Rangers getting to this stage was just didn't happen, did it? So it's something we've become accustomed to of late. So I think it's just a case of embracing it, going out there, showing the true version of yourselves. It's good as well. Speaking to a few fans earlier on, and rarely do you get a team coming at Rangers and opening up. I mean, the Old Firm games aside, rarely do you get a team really going toe for toe with Rangers. I think we'll see that tonight, though. That should make for a good game. Should make for a refreshing game as well. I'm sure we'll see a goal or two. If Rangers can get a goal, come back to Ibrox maybe with a 1-goal deficit. If they get a draw, fantastic. But as long as they're in the tie, then I'm sure we'll all be happy with that.
Right, let's get to some comments. RFC72 is happy with the team. Pretty attacking team. I like it. James says, evening, not a bad lineup. Mac, a good friend of the show. That's a strong lineup given our situation. Big Phil is going for it. Yeah, the first time I believe that Silva and Dessers have started together. John agrees. He says, we are going all guns blazing tonight. World's greatest DJ, another good friend of the show, Roof, to come on for a late winner from the halfway line. He did that away in Real Betis, didn't he? He is available from the bench, a bench that doesn't have many other options. So Kemar Roof will have to make an impact if he does come on tonight. Chris, comment here saying, Silva said he came here to play in Europe. Time to walk the walk. As I say, it's the first time Silva and Dessers have started together. Not entirely sure where Silva will play. I think the risk is if you play him as a kind of left midfielder, he could spend a lot of the game going backwards and tracking the fullback. Whereas if you put him at number 10, then maybe give him a little bit more license. But then again, is that Tom Lawrence's game, tracking the fullback and going backwards? Big game for Fabio Silva, and I guess an indication of the type of game that Clement wants to create by starting as two number 9s in the team, as opposed to, I know he's not got many options on the bench, but as opposed to maybe putting an extra midfielder in there and trying to just keep things tight in the midfield.
I think we'll see Silva from that left-hand side. I'd be surprised if Lawrence has moved out there. I think we'll see him a bit more centrally. Important that he tries to be as forward-thinking as possible to try and get close to Dessers, try and provide a bit of support. It could be a long, lonely night for Dessers if Rangers just try and fire the ball at him and try and use him as a ball. Need to get the team as high up the pitch as possible in certain moments. But as the manager said last night, don't be naive. It's not a game where they can go gung ho. It's not a game where they can take unnecessary risks because they don't have to. It's the first leg. I think I see some of the comments coming in. People saying now they would take a draw. They would take a narrow 1-0 or 2-1 defeat. As you say, Josh, it is a big night for a number of these players. None more so than Silva. Spoke at the press conference last night about not being back in Portugal and the opportunity to go and play against Benfica. This is the kind of level that he sees himself playing at and getting into latter stages of European competition. It's not why he was brought in. He was brought in to score the goals to try and get Rangers over the line in terms of the Premiership title race. But he is a player who is more than capable of playing in the latter stages at this particular level. Not in his ideal position, I don't think. Not in the position that he was signed to play. But it's very much a case of needs must. And interesting to see how he copes off that left hand side. I know you mentioned the other day about Sima playing that left hand side over in Prague. A very different type of performance that night. He was up and down. He put in a power of work that night. Real selfless performance. On a night with the manager, again had injury problems. Again, he had to mix it up a wee bit. Sima, it was selfless. He put in a great shift for the side. Silva, don't think he's got that level of running in him, but I think we have seen a bit of work rate from him. He's not just this guy who's here to play nice passes and play nice touches. He has got stuck in. Not to use an Uncle Scottish football cliche. He has shown that he does have that work rate about him. So I don't think we should fear that he's just going to spend his entire game not trying to push up the pitch. I think we will see him drop back at times to help Ridvan out. A lot of emphasis also on the midfield too of Diomande and Lundstrom getting in there to help the fullbacks out as a bit possible as well. And as much as there's a focus on the final third, I think there has to be a lot of focus on the Rangers back four. Very shaky at the weekend. Not great down at Kilmarnock this time last week. So I think it's a really important night for John Souttar and Conor Goldson. If Rangers are going to get an encouraging result, those two really need to be at it. And again, as the manager said last night, you need a goalkeeper that's going to have a great game. I think we can all but pin our hat on Jack Butland doing that. So I'll be down to certainly the two, but the whole 10 in front of them.
Yeah, Derek's coming and going. I presume it's not at your chat, Chris, but we'll see if he returns.
Derek's a newborn at Barisic. He comes and goes.
Comes and goes. Yeah, there we go. Alexander says, I'll read this comment first from Jamie saying, Sterling to score his first professional goal with a late run to the back post. Alexander saying, could you see Sterling being more defensive and Tav being more attacking because he scored Europa League goals before? Adding, could we see Tav get another back post goal on the right? Alexander obviously tuned in this morning to our tactics corner, Chris, but I think it's a great point. Sterling will, I presume he plays on the right, and I think he will. should allow Tavenier to do what he is really strong at in Europe, which is to attack the back post. But as we've covered on the website and as we've covered on the morning briefing and in a separate video as well, one of the areas, I think the predominant area where Benfica are weak, as much as you look at the strength behind their striker, with Silva, Di Maria and Neres, they're not going to work back quite so much similar, maybe not dissimilar from the Real Betis game away from home. That should afford Tavenier a lot of opportunity to become the fifth man and attack at the back post on the right, and perhaps Fabio Silva too, as you allude to, I think correctly, as Abdallah Sima did, play that wide left role more as a kind of secondary number 9. And Rangers probably won't need as much width tonight as they did against Motherwell, because as Derek was suggesting, the game is going to be more open. Do you go along with that? Well, looking at that team as Derek comes back in to join us, looking at that team, I'll throw it to you then, Derek, if you want to unmute yourself while I'm speaking.
Yes.
We've just been speaking about the back post and the fact that Rangers' best chance of goal might be against Tavenier. We've seen that before in Europe. Do you think that corroborates with where Benfica are weak, as I guess we've kind of discussed over the past few days? No. I'm going to remove Derek because he obviously isn't on my chat either, Chris. Sorry for the technical difficulties for you. We endeavour to always bring you the best coverage possible, but sometimes even Derek lets the Wi-Fi get ahead of him. Chris, I'll direct it to you instead. In simple terms, if you look at that Rangers team in Europe, James Tavenier is probably your best bet at a goal, isn't he?
I think if you look at the piece that you had with him during the winter break, and he analysed his goals and in the areas where he looks to hurt teams, I think that really comes to the fore in Europe. We've seen him do it so often. I know he spoke in that piece about to time his runs and that almost get drifting at the back post. It's quite something that people or that defenders are still getting caught out by him making that run and being in those positions at that time, because he's so good at it, and he's done it 122 goals or 121 goals he scored for the club now. So he's definitely a threat. I think having Sterling on that side maybe gives him a bit more license to get forward, but it's hard to, I think, until the game actually starts and we see how Rangers are going to settle into it. It's not going to be your typical game in terms of Rangers being dominant on the ball, having a lot of the possession, being able to dictate the tempo and the flow of it. There's going to be times where they are on the back foot. They're going to have to soak it up, might just try and catch Benfica on the break. Need to be really strong in those transition moments. But I think it's a side, as we said at the start, it's a side that does have quality in it. It's a side that does have threat and goals in it. It's just whether they can produce, which will need to be a huge performance to combine all those aspects you're looking at. The back 4-5 having a great game. If they keep a clean sheet, now what a result that is for Rangers. A lot of control is going to need to be found in the middle of the pitch. Puts a lot of pressure on Diomande at this level, still new to the club. Lundstrom, it's Thursday night. Hopefully it brings out the best in him once again. And you're then looking at that front four, Lawrence, Sterling, Des or Silva. What can they do? Can they go and hurt Benfica? Can they get enough of the ball? And if the chances come along, ultimately can they take them? Because that was a huge problem for Rangers, obviously, at the weekend against Motherwell. You're not going to get 20 odd chances away to Benfica. If you get two or three, one of them is going to have to go in the back of the net if Rangers are going to get a positive result tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. We should remind the over 700 people with us, as you can see on the ticker below the screen, you can subscribe just £4 for 4 months to support the Rangers Review and get access to everything we do every single day. The links are in the description. Loads of content on there that we trust you will really enjoy. You can also join the YouTube members channel if you want to do that as well and get extra videos. Right, Chris, as we kind of come to a close, a couple more talking points. The defence sheet you've touched upon there. I think it started 2024 really well, but it has seemed to have a bit of a mistake in it. As cliche as that is, it was Goldson against Aberdeen, wasn't it? Goldson had a really poor game, the poorest game I can remember him having just in recent memory, to be honest, at the weekend against Motherwell. But Suter as well, he was one who made the mistake leading to the first goal, playing on that left-hand side. Because he's an aggressive defender, it feels like that type of motion when he comes out. He actually had one away at Kilmarnock as well, where he attacks the ball on his wrong side and the ball goes beyond him. They'll need to both have a really good game tonight if Rangers are to get a result, as you say. The other player I want to just touch upon is Tom Lawrence. He's someone who we've not really seen play in Europe all that much because of his injury issues. He's the most consistent. He's played for Rangers since he came to the club, nearing 2 years ago because of injuries. But he's a player who is signed for the club, presumably to play on this stage as well, and could have a big say in the middle of the park and given Rangers that kind of creative edge. Always remember the chance he had PSV away, where it wasn't even really a chance, but he hit the crossbar from about 20 yards with a fantastic bit of play. Would take one of those again tonight, but he'll have a big say in the middle alongside, as you say, Lundstrom, who is very experienced at this level, and Diomande, who, presuming he plays on the left-hand side, I think will have a big defensive role to play, having operated as a number 10 instead recently.
I think the Diomande role's interesting because, as you say, certainly domestically, we've seen him get on the ball, try and be a forward thinker, try and be a creative element within that midfield. Perhaps a very different kind of role for him tonight. We know the manager's spoken about how he can play each of those 3 midfield roles. He's equally as adept at all of them. This is the first real chance I think we'll have to see. Well, how good is he defensively? How does he track his runners? Does he find himself in the right place? Does he make the right challenges? So a big night for Diomande. But I think, as you outlined, if Rangers are going to have a positive night, I think there is quite a lot resting on Tom Lawrence. Also, no Todd Cantwell in the squad, as we know. Short of options in the wide areas. Lawrence, he just offers that something a bit different. You mentioned that Chancellor against the PSV. He offers that within the squad. There's very few players within the group that do have that ability to test a goalkeeper from that distance. Not every attacking phase has to almost walk the ball into the back of the net, and it might just be Lawrence can get himself in that range a couple of times, test the goalkeeper, put a bit of doubt in Benfica's mind. Speaking to a Portuguese journalist earlier on this week, saying if you can get that home crowd, if Rangers can start well, much like a team coming to Ibrox almost, if you can start well, perhaps turn the home crowd, that then has a negative impact on Benfica. And someone like Lawrence, it might not take Rangers having 10-15 minutes of the ball. It might just be a couple of shots being peppered in, a couple of blocks having to be made just to put a wee bit of doubt in Benfica's mind. So I think Lawrence will have a big part to play in that.
We should mention it could also be a back 3, couldn't it? I guess with Sterling next to Golson and Sousa, Tavenier and Ridvan trying to play on the last line a bit, Diomande, Lundstrom and Lawrence in the middle, Dessers and Silva. It's hard to know, and I guess we'll only know in just over half an hour, Chris, when the game kicks off. We're going to leave it there for now. You can get all your coverage in the Rangers Review right throughout the game. Chris will be providing his instant analysis. We'll have a look back at the game tomorrow where it was won and lost with Stats Bomb analysis of the game. And whatever else happens, whatever else materialises tonight in Lisbon. We'll be back as well at some point after the press conference to discuss the game in more detail, hopefully with Derek Clark, who's more ready and aided by some Wi-Fi or some form of connection in the Portuguese capital. But until then, enjoy the game wherever you are watching it from. Thanks for joining us for this pre-match briefing, and we'll speak to you soon. Bye for now.